Hey, this is Shaun with the Go Tennis Podcast, powered by Signature Tennis. Check out our calendar of Metro Atlanta tennis events at letsgotennis.com. And if you're a fan of Bull Shark Sports, go to shop.letsgotennis.com. Get yourself a hoodie or a hat. Today, this is Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hesley. Today, Coach Ben wants to talk about taking advantage of downtime. Ben, you ready to talk youth sports?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, today, Coach Ben wants to discuss downtime during inclement weather or canceled events and what you can do to stay entertained or your kids to stay entertained, or if you want to just keep your work ethic strong. So, Ben, where do you want to start?
Well, where I want to start actually is not on the topic today. You talked about a hoodie or hat, and I've got to just showcase this new Go Tennis sweatshirt that a good
You're
friend of
looking
mine
good.
got for me. So thank you very much for that. I love working with you guys. It's super fun, and yeah, the sweatshirt is awesome. So audience out there, if you don't have one already, go to Go Tennis, letsgotennis.com and get yourself this hoodie. It's fantastic. So,
Well, thank you.
but with our topic today,
Yeah.
we'll just start taking advantage of the downtime. We know we've had some winter's weather. We've had a couple snowstorms already this year. We're getting into spring. We're going to have some rainouts. You're going to have some games that are, everybody has the best intentions as league directors, but tennis matches, soccer games, baseball, softball games, they're going to get rained out. It's a guarantee. And what to do with that downtime that we're given. And so I thinking about this, I just thought about somebody I used to work with a lot when I was at Druid Hills. And her name is Sue Carson. And Sue was the director of our adult programs, and in particular our women's program. And she was always really good about taking advantage when we had those rain days or cold days or where we couldn't be on the court at the club. And we all know, like us as tennis pros, we're kind of notorious, myself included, back in the early 20s, my 20s, my early 20s was sort of notorious for a rain day. We'd be hitting the pub at 3 o'clock and hanging out and shooting the breeze as tennis pros, and probably not paying much attention as we should have to the off court work that it takes to be a good coach. And Sue taught me how to do that and how to appropriate my time so that I was engaged and doing a good job when it was time to be busy on court. And so she was super good at taking advantage of all those off court duties that we as tennis pros have during those times that we weren't as busy. Um, so yeah, that's where I'll start, and we'll keep the conversation today. Just whether it be we're slow at work, and how can we take advantage of some downtime at work and get ahead of our work so we can keep those habits that we're trying to create with our kids. Spend more time with our kids when we are slow at work and don't need to work, or maybe find some athletic alternative to them for them when there is a game rain out or a practice rain out.
Well, and that gives us some options. It basically says, all right, we're rained out. What we would do as a family is say, well, this might be a time to go home and watch a movie because we never do that. When there's zero screen time, we get to go do that. It's kind of a special treat. But others that maybe are trying to keep the kids from the screen time, maybe it is okay. Well, we got rained out. Maybe we need a Dave and Buster's. Maybe we need an Activate. I think is the place you and your kids appreciate, where you go run around and it's athletic and it's fun and the kids are getting exercise, and there's a scenario where we get a chance to take the kids to do something fun or interesting or unique, as opposed to just going home and really struggling to find the next thing, or handing the kid the iPad and saying, all right, well, it rained, I guess you can go back to doing this. So whether what I guess it's the target, either as a family or as a coach or as an employee, to be able to say, do I need to get ahead? Can I get some things done? Or is it really, you know what? I haven't seen my kids since yesterday. I'm going home early today.
Yeah, I mean, one of my favorite things that I was able to do, luckily in my club world, as much as I did work, there would be a time, and usually be a weekday, where I could sneak away. And there'd be a time, I remember this for a series of probably a year or so, where my kids were really little, and the club on the on court coaching duties didn't really need me on a particular weekday, and I would leave at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And I would pick my kids up like right after school, and we go to the park. We go to the playground. And I've got videos of like my son. He's was 5 at the time. My daughter was 1, and he's pushing her on a little baby swing. And those were really cherished times that we got to do. And I look at those videos. I'm like, wow, it wasn't a Saturday afternoon. It was a Wednesday at 3:30, and or I would take my son to the baseball park, and I'd pitch to him or something like that on a Wednesday afternoon, and that was great. And that was time was, and then that's what you were saying is like, yes, I have work to do. I'm sort of busy, but like, do I really have to be at work at this moment? And if the answer is no, man, go grab those kids and go do something with them.
And especially, I'll pick on a little bit the parents that send their kids to school and daycare, and then everybody's got jobs. Those parents don't see their kids as often as they probably would like, or at least as often as they like to think they do. Because you get your kid up in the morning, you feed them breakfast, you drop them off at daycare, or they get on the bus, you go to work, they stay after school at some after school thing. 8 hours later, you haven't seen your kid all day. You come home, you pick them up, you feed them dinner, you do some homework, you bathe them, you put them in bed. You've seen your kid maybe at most 3 hours during the day, at most, maybe more like an hour and a half or 2 hours. And I would think that if you got a chance to sneak away, say, you know what, there is no work that has to be done right now. I just really want to go hang out with my kid. Take him out of school. I mean, my kid doesn't go to school, so you know my point of view on that. But take him out of school. Say, you know what, teach. We're going to the park. Why? Because we can.
I actually, I'll say this, not that I'm advocating you take your kid out of school at all.
I am.
I wouldn't judge that either. The story I'm about to tell you, education is super important.
Yes, it is.
But there was a time where my son was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old, and I wasn't busy at the club, and I took him to a noonday Braves game. It was like a Tuesday or Thursday, just so sometimes in the season, most baseball, if it's not during the week, they mostly play at night. But there'll be a random time where there'll be a day game during the week, and I took him to it. I just said we're gonna go, and I literally took him out of school. And I remember telling him that he had an appointment because I had to tell the people at school, the office administrator and his teacher, that he had an appointment. Luckily, they didn't ask for a documentation, an excuse or whatever. And I said, yeah, he's got an appointment. And we left, and he's like, "What appointment do I have?" I said, "Don't worry about it. We'll see when we get there." And he's driving. He's kind of like, "Where are we going?" And so yeah, we went to a Braves game, and middle of the week, lunchtime, and it was super fun. Yeah, I did have to work that night, but I wasn't busy at that time, so I actually think I brought Turner back home and then went back to the club and taught lessons that night.
It looks something. We got an appointment with Dr. Freeman, Dr. Freddie Freeman.
Yeah,
But no, and I'm the type to say, take your kids out of school. They spend way too much time in school. I'm not saying education isn't important. I'm saying school might not need to be there for a few hours to go check out a Braves game. I think that's fantastic. I appreciate that kind of parenting, Ben. But in this case, from a work ethic point of view, you got some things you can do. Say, hey, we got rained out, and most people don't get rained out of work. Like that's
yeah.
a that's a
We're an
sporting.
anomaly as sports coaches.
Yeah,
We
that's a
deal with
sporting
weather.
thing.
Yeah,
But let's say at work we've seen this a couple of times where the power goes out, or you lose internet connection. There are some things that happen. Or you know what? You have a good relationship with your boss, and you've got everything done, and you got everything submitted, and you're going to sneak out at 1 o'clock that day. Go see your kids. Go take. Be like, well, the kids are at school. There's nothing I can do. Yeah, go pick them up. They're not. Your kids aren't in jail. Go pick them up and go do something, or take care of yourself. Go do something for yourself if you're the type. But I think the downtime is those are important decisions. And if you're like me, where the screen time is a treat as opposed to a natural occurrence, then maybe that's the thing. And if you're not and you want to be able to get outside and get some exercise, go for it. But I think that's a scenario where we look at those times, say, this is where we get to do something either for myself as a person or with my kids. I think those are good opportunities.
yeah, absolutely. And I think See, and that's what I look at when I look outside and see it's kind of raining a little bit, or it's going to be super cold, and I've got to cancel lessons. That's my go-to. I think, man, what can I do with my own kids today? And like you mentioned, it doesn't have to be go to a Braves game, or maybe it is go watch a movie or whatever. But other things you mentioned, like Activate, that's a place my kids love to go. They love to go to Activate. They go to Sky Zone a lot, the trampoline or any kind of trampoline park. Those are great places. The little kids, you go those bouncy house, like indoor bouncy house type place. I mean, we used to live in those places when my kids were super little. But that's the stuff that they need to be doing. And since we were our youth sports talk show, those are the things that can help accelerate their athleticism,
Mhm.
right? Not going home and being on the iPad because you're, okay, the answer should not be I'm not busy working out. I'm going to take my own social media break and go check Facebook and see who's in line for parent of the year. If you want to be parent of the year, you want to be your kids parent of the year, parent of their life, take them somewhere, get them active, get them moving, and help them sort of push the needle forward. Because that's our number one job, right? As parents, it's our kids. It's to raise these kids and not just make them great kids, but raise them to be great adults. By the way, there's a plug for another book I've mentioned on here before, but How to Raise an Adult. If you haven't read it, great book on how to raise kids, how to create self-reliance, things of that nature. So not necessarily exactly what we're talking about today. We're talking about taking advantage of downtime, but just kind of came up another plug for a good book for parents to read.
Well, you mentioned raising an adult and that kind of self-reliance, and not to go too far into it, but on a recent 10 minutes of tennis, we talked about responsibility and trying to generate maturity in the kids sooner rather than later, which is a strong indicator of success later in life, is maturity. And in this case, maybe it is, hey, it's raining, baseball's rained out. We're going to go home and we're going to pick a room and we're going to clean it spick and span. And we're going to do it together. Even if that's the kind of thing, that's my wife's idea of
Yeah,
family time.
downtime.
And
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
yeah, all right, all right. So we're going to clean the baseboards. We're going to do everything, but we're still in there with our 2 year old cleaning and putting his stuff away, and he's got to put the books in order. But to teach those things early can be good downtime as well. If it isn't just, hey, I'm going to get some extra work done at work so I can have that time. Like you said, sometimes you try to get the work done now so I can either go home early tomorrow or not have to work late tomorrow. So a lot of it in the youth sports talk world as we talk about this is how much time can we spend with our kids? How can we sometimes we have to justify it and say, well, I got to leave work to go play with my kids, where that I just look at it backwards. I'm like I'm disappointed every time I have to leave my son to come to work even though I love it. It's a scenario of I also get to be around him often, and I very much appreciate it. And I wish that for all the other parents out there to spend more time playing catch with your kids and shooting hoops with your kids than being at work and just coming home and feeding them and putting them to bed.
yeah. And we know hey, look, you and I are lucky with the lives that we're able to lead. But we know there's some parents that aren't as fortunate, and they have to have their kid in daycare and aftercare, and they do work until 7 or 8 sometimes at night. But I was thinking more today on the rainy day situation where, it's okay, everything's canceled today for whatever reason.
All of a
You brought
sudden,
up a good point about looking ahead. Like, look ahead at your calendar. What are these times? Does my son or daughter have a game on Thursday night? Well, if I could get all my work done now, then maybe I could take off and go see them play on Thursday night rather than being at work or being tied up. So just looking at your schedule, taking advantage of holes you see in that downtime, and taking more advantage of things so that you can spend time on the things that you really, really want to do and enjoy.
can't say it better myself, Ben. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. This has been Youth Sports Talk with Coach Ben Hesley. Thank you, sir. We'll see you next week.
All right. Have fun with your kids, guys.